This is Audiogyan, and I am your host Kedar Nimkar. Welcome to a deep dive into the minds of luminaries from the Indian creative world. माँ का आशीर्वाद, ओके टाटा बाय बाय, हम दो हमारे दो, मेरा भारत महान. Sounds familiar? I'm talking about the slogans written behind the truck, but we are not going to discuss those, rather the heavy vehicles on which these are written. Yes, trucks. In 1911, truck designer Charles Martin built a gasoline-powered tractor to pull modified horse-drawn commercial wagons. His most significant innovation, however, was the fifth wheel coupler, a round plate with a central hole. It attached to the top of the tractor frames to connect and support trailers. Trucks are broadly divided into light duty, medium duty, heavy duty. Classification depends mainly on the weight, which we'll try and discover in this episode. And in today's episode, we sort of also try and introduce ourselves of how trucks are designed. I'm pleased to have Sathiya Seelan Gangaasalam with us on Audiogyan. He is currently the Vice President of Design at Ashok Leyland, an industrial designer who has spent over 2 decades designing cars, trucks, buses, and three-wheelers. Satya is a design thinker, mentor, and writer, and also passionate about watercolor. So thank you, Satya, for giving your time, and it's a real honor to have you on Audiogyan.
Hi everyone. Yeah, it's a pleasure. Pleasure is mine because it's a wonderful opportunity to reach into people across various divisions of design. I see fashion designers. I see whatnot, architects and all.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. So yeah, as I said, welcome and thanks for giving your time. But the whole entire conversation, I will leave it to you because I've just done, I think, one automobile design back then in 2017 on how Harley Davidson's are designed. But it's been quite some time that I haven't covered automobile design, and neither I've got much specialty in understanding it. So I wanted to start off by understanding what's the sort of the landscape of truck or truck markets in India, who are the key players. I mean, that's just setting the context of what gets designed, what gets manufactured, what is imported. It will help us sort of understand the landscape at large.
Yes, fantastic. So first of all, thank you so much for focusing in commercial vehicle design, particularly trucks, because our Indian design landscape is more fascinated, excited on the attractive bikes and cars. Okay. But when you look at commercial vehicle, particularly the truck design, in 2022 alone, the value of the entire market of trucks, including LCVs and all the segments, is 20,042 million US dollars. So you can calculate in Indian rupees, right? And that is only 2022, just after the pandemic. But the report says it's going to grow by 4 times.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
It's 18 million plus by 2050. Okay. So it's going to be fourfold. And one can ask the question that I like the transportation design has been the transport solutions are multifaceted. So one can use rails and flights and things like that. But how the truck is being welcomed by, or the growth is marginally high because the reachability, the rural reachability and hilly areas, for example, Northeast is totally attached. So investing new railroads or accessing through the air, these are all very costly as well as very cumbersome. And also loading and unloading is very easy in truck. So that's the reason why the truck business is getting more and more important. When I say, as you said, there are segments within the truck. We say light commercial vehicles, sub 3.5 tonner, and you have 3.5 to 7.5 tonner. You can say TATA 407, E-Comet, and things like that, from Ashok Leyland. From 7.5 to 16 tonners, we call ICV, as you said, the intermediate tonnage. And you have 16 to 30, the heavy trucks, and you have 30 tons and above. So based on, as you rightly said, based on the tonnage, the vehicle has been segregated horizontally. And vertically, you have the use, like for example, construction, logistics. And another very important segment is mining, So the mining segment, trucks are basically tipper, but the thing is that is be tuned to run continuously thousands of kilometers. They can't stop in between, So from they go there and come back. Even the refueling and everything happens on the goods. Not many people know about it. But in that kind of segment, Ashok Leyland tops because our vehicle runs 1 lakh kilometer continuously without one single stop or maintenance or whatever.
Oh.
So we outbeat Bharat Benz and other competitors in that. So it's tested in Orissa limestone mines or whatever. So anyway, so specifically, this is the overall perspective of the market in terms of tonnages, in terms of the third point is the employment, direct and indirect employment. Okay, so Air Research says it's on 1.72 million people are dependent directly, indirectly. For example, the road laying, unloading, brokers, and multifaceted. Just trucks alone. Okay, so this is the overall perspective of the truck business, particularly in India by 2022. I mean, last year.
And as you said, if you want to elaborate on the verticals, there's mainly the transport, mining, and one more thing which you said,
Logistics.
Yeah. So so within these three verticals, like, is there a monopoly or is there
Yes,
a dominant?
Yeah, logistics sector dominates the usage market because the fleet owners, like we are. There's a lot of big giants. They buy 300, 400 trucks at a time. And also the logistic people are the first time buyers. When you look into if you have a deep dive into how these trucks are being sold and resold, there will be giants. They will buy thousands, 300s in one numbers. After some mileage of usage, they will resell it to a next level. The B segment, like small logistics. The sand dwellers or construction equipment. It will go for the second hand after 1 lakh or 2 lakh. It goes up to 5, 6. Unlike cars, our trucks can run up to 10 plus lakhs of kilometers, 20 lakh, 30 lakh, it will go. But there are people who buy from us, or the giants who will buy in numbers, like, for minings and logistics. They are the ones. The construction gets the second-hand vehicles, the majority of it, they will buy. What they do is they will change the load body.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll come to that. Just like keeping that zoomed out view, and who are the bigger competitors in the market, and how much percentage of the truck or this heavy vehicle gets manufactured in India?
Yeah, so it's going to be 75 years in Ashok Leyland commercial vehicle business from 1948. So this year, Ashok Leyland is celebrating 75th year. Until then, we are second. The first is always Tata Motors. And when I talk about this, market share, before we conclude the percentage, it goes ups and downs. Like we are 6 to 7%. They are 40 and we are 36, 32 kind of stuffs. And they go up to 50. And also there's a lot of micro, like LCV, they are always minor. Heavy trucks, we are in upper hand. So the tonnage trucks, Ashok Leyland is in upper hand. And we have variance less because we focus on very particular heavy only. So soon we are going to focus. We are going to improve our lower segment, some to tenor, and also we are going to focus anyway. But at this point of time, Tata Motors is number one, and Ashok Leyland is number two.
Yeah. Okay. And what part of it, like both these companies or any other, even third or fourth player, how much percentage of vehicle is completely manufactured in India, or like, because I'm familiar with cars. I mean, if you look at Volkswagen, certain pieces directly, like the entire car comes in, right? You can't assemble or manufacture. So
Right. So,
what in that context?
so I can say proudly that the commercial vehicle segment, particularly buses and trucks, we started making it in India way very well, like, right from 50s, 48, 50s. Like in the early 50s, we used to get the kits from Mercedes Benz, and the Ashok Leyland have a Leyland part, which is the British company. Right. So until 80s, I'm told, I don't know how much it is really. I don't have the figure, but until 80s, we have British engineers working at our drawing rooms for the drawings of engines and all. So, but totally from 60s onwards, Tata Motors and Ashok Leyland. Somebody have to go dig out the exact year, but I'm not a historian to comment on it. But considerably, we were, unlike cars, we started doing our own commercial vehicle way in the late 50s up to 60s.
Got it.
Right?
So yeah.
When I'm saying this, there are two things which we need to see. We are market leaders. Majority of them, shared by Indian companies. But there are two important verticals in truck business, particularly. One is OEM, like you say, fully built. Fully built is the cabin, seat, everything is built and comes out like a car. Other one is chassis. We call FES, front end structure. So if you are traveling in India, you can see, sometimes there is a driver open drives with on top of a steering wheel and engine. All the other is open. So that is called FES.
Got it.
They will buy it and take it to people like, Tamil Nadu, there is something called Namakkal in Jaipur, and Maharashtra, there are a couple of like Dharwad. So they have a small time bodybuilders. So they will take the engine, steering wheel and control of whatever powertrain, and you have a long member. On top of this, you build your own cabin and the load body.
Interesting.
So the majority of the business, to few years ago, it was 90% is only chassis built.
Wow.
In that business, Tata Motors and Ashok Leyland are the line shareholders. Now, later, Mahindra started making chassis. Now the fully built is the competition, which is roughly 15 to 10%, where Volvo, Bharat Benz, Volvo Asia or Scania Truck, all these people are competing only in that 10%.
It's very, very fascinating.
This fully built vehicle is from Europe is damn costly, too costly for, operation, we can't work out the commercials of the operational cost and things like that.
Correct. And also it might be dependent on the usage, because a lot of people might have some different usage. So the FES would definitely give them much more flexibility to build structures as per the need.
Yes. But the very important point from the safety perspective is where we are sending chassis, the chassis only regulated. But the cabin built by the local bodybuilder is not regulated by any government authorities like ARI and or whatever.
Got it.
So there's a big lobby happening, and there is a truck code and bus code. Probably there are certain informations where better let us not openly talk about it, because they will build a complete cabin in 1.5 lakhs, which is miraculous. And they use wood. Okay, they use wood, and they use very flimsy, colorful sticker. As you said, there's a lot of taglines which is written with, like, truck is their cabin. Truck is their own, decorative piece. So they celebrate each and every part of it.
Wow.
So visually convert, the FES, there is one test, I'll tell you. There is one crash test that you have to pass the crash norms by providing a front bar, like front grille, which is a very strong sheet metal. So we give FES along with the front grille, front flap, or whatever you call it. The first thing the bodybuilder do is throw that regulated front flap which is very sturdy, strong, safe, crash worthy, and then they replace with very colorful, flimsy, thin sheet metal, which
Hmm.
is quite unsafe. So, so recently we have delivered from Ashok Leyland full sheet metal jacket. Without visual, you can't appreciate because the design is so and so. They started celebrating it.
Hmm.
So they started writing all that on the grill which we have given, which is tested, validated, strong sheet metal front, which is called Avatar range, basically.
Wow, that's a significant contribution there. So yeah, I mean, just coming back to, so what are those, like, because you mentioned crash test, I'm curious to know, like, what are the principles or what are the core values on which trucks are generally built, right? I mean, in design world we have these set of principles and certain norms and certain
Right.
frameworks.
Right.
So any, like, I know it can be just huge, but just like broad bullet points of, like, on which parameters a good, like, we can say that this is a good truck because XYZ. So what are those maybe?
For a good truck parameter, again, you have to split it into two. One is the fully built, and the other one is a custom chassis or whatever.
Hmm.
Right. So we are very strong in chassis because in India, the engine, okay, the engine has to be as simple as that anybody can replace at any point of time, any part or repairable work.
Okay.
And number two, the tonnage. So if you are regulated for 4 tons, for example, Indians, whether it is right or not, have a tendency of loading double the regulated tonnage.
Hmm.
So, for example, we have a burden of coming up with a solution which is really robust, which can handle more than what it is regulated. We have to handle the weights, which is like, for example, if I do a 1 tonner, I'm sure people will do it 2, 3 tons up to it. They will remove the load body, build the whole height and then fill it with a lot of material. So the problem is the drivers are unaware, highly uneducated. That's the reason why I want to tap on the drivers.
Hmm.
So, to answer your question, what is good truck? Which has to go double the tonnage and it will not stop. They
Hmm.
want a horse which never eat grass and never get tired. So that is what the good horse, which was idle, but in our conditions, so really Ashok Leyland engines are tuned.
Got it. And this is mainly for India, or generally speaking, because it's a more regulated and organized setup outside India, maybe.
Yes,
So.
yes. See, in Europe also, Europe they can't overload. To my knowledge, I have a very little knowledge about the European truck because I worked in global companies, but not for trucks. So,
Hmm.
uh, but the many of the times in US and Europe, people used to the drivers used to travel alone or very hardly they have a helper or somebody next to it to help them. So in between, say for example, if you are passing by Alaska, if something happens in the very bitter cold, the driver will be able to address all those issues. Of course, they have forums, they have magazines and all. It's entirely different. The European and American context of trucking is entirely different with the India.
Hmm.
So I'm really going to address those problems of trucking from the man and machine, like user experience, UX UI perspective. The machine is one part. Machine is our Indian machines are fantastic.
Hmm.
To tell you, Kerala, right? Backwaters. In the backwater, 99% of the backwater boats have Ashok Leyland engines.
Hmm. Hmm.
Some time ago, it was 100% because you don't have a luxury of failure in the middle of the water.
Correct.
That's the reason why I caught. Like people take our engine and then made their own boat houses and things like that, which will never, it's presumed that it will never fail in the middle of the water,
Hmm. Hmm.
along with your boat houses, AC or whatever. So our technology, our Indian truck engines, in that case, if you go to west or somewhere else in the north or whatever, the Tata Motors are very, very strong in terms of their engine and engine performance.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
But
Correct.
the overloading is a very serious issue where nobody, neither the government nor the OEMs are in control. Because for the competition, if you really want to have a good business, definitely you have to design a vehicle which is capable of holding more than what it is promised.
Correct. Hmm.
The axle should not break. The long member should not break, even if you have a double the weight or whatever. You know.
Hmm. Hmm. So yeah, so now if I have to like just what I've understood is making it simple so that it's quickly repairable or whatever, just fixable
Yes.
in long commutes.
Right.
And second is handling the load. But
Right.
so given our economic conditions also, like isn't mileage an important characteristic or it's right now fine?
Mileage is a very critical criteria. That's the engine performance, I think, which is including that.
Hmm.
But if you have even 0.5 kilometers extra for 1 liter petrol, assume that if you are running, 12 hours, 400 kilometers per day, amount of saving is. So every bit of drop of fuel is very important when it comes for trucking.
Hmm. Hmm.
Our engine R&D is both. I mean, almost every all the due credit to the engineers of Tata Motors, Mahindra, and Ashok Leyland, where I am coming from. Our engineers are very vigorously, continuously doing R&D to improvise the mileages.
Hmm. 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 Cool.
But
Uh,
the
hmm.
differences between these OEMs are marginal. Even if it is 1 kilometer, definitely these drivers will come away and then say very straightforward. They will say, "Boss, your vehicle is not performing with the
Oh,
mic."
okay.
Yeah,
Interesting. And then because we touched upon multiple things, again, if you can briefly sort of give like stages in which
mm.
it's designed, right? I mean, because you come from like a design background,
Yes, yes.
and I remember like reading some articles that there are sketches, and then based on observations is like then you do these
Yeah.
prototypes and then testing and then road testing. So any specific difference in the making of it
Right.
for especially for trucks?
Yeah, yeah. So that's a fantastic question that you're asking. See, this the against, for example, a car design. Okay, the 1:1 is that easy, physically as well as digitally.
Hmm.
The whole assembly file of a truck, not less than 100 GB, 125 GB, 300 GB. That's a file that you have to turn around in the computer. Or otherwise, if you're projecting, you really have to have a 12 meter virtual reality screen to actually see it in 1:1, right? And also, very, very important point here is prototyping 1:1 is a huge task. But prototyping 1:1 is very, very vital when it comes for truck because you have to climb and sit and feel. So particularly the interior, the reach envelopes, the effort that turn your vehicle. I mean, unfortunately, uh, we are the most, how to say in a very humble words. So the truck is a very peculiar vehicle where the owner is not the driver.
Hmm.
The fleet owner runs the business, but he never operates this. But that guy, he doesn't even care about the fellow driver or a fellow servant. The attitude is, I am sitting on road. I don't have AC at my home. Why should I give my servant the AC or sophistication?
Hmm.
Even today, that's the reason why the fully built is not successful in India because they don't want to spend for the driver and sophistication. So to answer this question, well, you are all these sophistication for the driver. The burden of the OEM or burden of the designer is to deliver at free of cost to the drivers because the customer who really buys the product is not demanding all these things.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. For example, in Ashok Leyland, we don't go for an exorbitantly high headlamp, very designed headlamp. Okay. So for example, 2000 rupees is the headlamp price. If it is get broken, the owner will say, boss, I don't have money to replace the headlamp. You run it without one side headlamp. So then I have to be careful where it has to be 400 to 800 rupees. So therefore, easily circular lamp, you can replace it anywhere. So the even if it is when you are turning radius, no, so that in the bumper, the headlamp is the one which is vulnerable for any breakage. So to answer your question, the process is the same like in a car design. You go with sketches. You have a divergent phase and a convergent phase. In a divergent phase, like you, in Ashok Leyland, we have a design philosophy, design DNA. We call it "Aapki jeet, hamari jeet." In English, your victory is my victory. What we tend to say is the company is focusing on the successful endeavor of the businessman who is the customer.
Hmm.
So we develop this verbal attribute into a visual clues, like, when you'll say "Aapki jeet, hamari jeet." When Tendulkar rises up or somebody is winning the race, of 100-meter race, we feel "Unka jeet, hamara jeet."
Hmm.
So then how they celebrate, they'll stretch the hand like this. So we develop a visual DNA of this. You can see Ashok Leyland, the avatar range or whatever. So like that. So take the visual clues in DNA. So we go with hundreds of various sketches for interior, for exterior, and then we'll freeze through convergent phase. We'll freeze through. Then you have user survey. What is the liking, what not like. For example, in avatar, we tend to give the complete frontal parts out and out, it is sheet metal.
Okay.
Because the customer says, if it's a plastic grill, I have to replace if it is broken in one corner or one small part of it, like 5% of the area is being affected, I have to replace the whole plastic.
Hmm.
But if it is sheet metal, they will take to the garage, tinker and painting, you can do that. So again, imagine the expenses occurred by the driver is a very critical issue with the fleet owners and other stuff. So it will affect him. So therefore, this guy can go easily 1 or 2 days. And of course, this truck is standing still for a day. It is it's going to incur a big damage in your business flow, because one day if it is standalone, the cost of it, the operating cost, the return of investment is also important. So they don't want to waste time in refiring. So therefore, a small understanding is give as simple as that, very primitive gadgets in terms of fog lamps, headlamps, or indicator, and be it so totally sheet metal. So this findings you will get it from the drivers. Because I don't want a full grill. They will give in a different way, So no plastic or whatever. So and also
So beautiful this is, because we are living in the age of, like, yeah, MacBooks having full body aluminum, one sheet, and they're talking about recycling and a lot of good things. But here it's much more profound, I think, because everything is designed keeping the user's affordability into mind, and it
exactly.
may look primitive, but it seems to be very, very highly empathetic, because you are constantly
Exactly. The word empathy is the driving force. Very, very, very nicely said. Thank you.
yeah,
So
yeah. Hmm.
when it comes for interiors, it's again a challenge. We can see it. Or 15 years ago, the scenario was very different, because the driver who is earning 10,000, average 15,000 rupees, he doesn't have a gadget of electronics or digital, which is equivalent to his 1 month salary in his packet, which is much more capable in terms of digital. I'm talking about the cell phone. Earlier, the tachometer, the fuel meter, the speed which is going to run, all that is very analog, you know, big switches you have to break in and things like that. Today, our drivers are much more digitally inclined. Even the speedometer is not there. You have an app. You can have your cell phone and then see what speed that you are going to go. And that is going to grow up to, you are going to have your app, and then you can even get so much of information which an analog instrument cluster can't give.
Hmm.
He is digitally superior personally than the machine which he is driving.
Correct.
Right? So in this juncture, we have to be carefully what is to be digital, what is to be analog. At the same time, we don't give so much of information. Like, for example, 80.2333 kilometers per hour. So many fractions. No, he doesn't need. The analog is in a glance. For 10 microsecond, he'll say, I'm in between 90 to 100. No, within a second. So the balancing between the upcoming digital app and cell phone mania to the uh, safety or easily processable information to the brain of the driver who's highly illiterate is a challenge to when you design the interiors.
Hmm.
What
Hmm.
I mean to say?
Okay, and then so far it's sketches, then user testing, and when you're doing this user testing, you're building like prototypes of, because how does a truck driver
Yeah.
come and sit and try and
But we have a target cost, which is the another criteria. So you have an idea which is being divergent phase, and you have
Hmm.
the inputs from the marketing and as well as the customer. Customer is the twofold, right? One the fleet owner, another one is the driver.
Hmm.
So we take all the inputs. Those inputs are visualized in Sketch. And the second stage, we do a scale clay,
Okay.
get the visual approval, the design or vision approval. Then the package plays a major role. The package, there are two different design activities for trucks. One is the an all new. The other one is facelift. Facelift is something you use your BAW, body in white, the skeleton on top of that. You do that. Normally, as you rightly said in one of the questions in our previous, conversations, you were asking why the design is sustaining for a long time. For example, one cab design uh, to the next update on design in cars happens in 1 year or 2 year or whatever. So can happen, but in trucks, minimum 5 to 10 years.
Hmm.
It's because of a very huge sheet metal tooling, testing, validating, regulations, cost, and all these things are important. But what is very critical at this point of time is the BAW.
Hmm.
BAW is body in white, which is the skeleton of it. Okay. So if any change that you have to incur, then you have to go for test and validate with the government. You have to do CAE, crashworthiness. So many regulatory stuffs will eat away a lot of time and money. So that's the reason why we have the design cycle, life cycle of the design is such a long. Sometimes,
Got it.
and for that you have to be timelessness is also included in the thought process.
Hmm.
Even after 5 6 years, it should be trendy.
Correct. And obviously, when they're running for 5 lakh and 10 lakh kilometers, I think it's
Yeah,
proportional to the time invested is
exactly.
worthwhile. Yeah. Yeah.
And we do clay model to complete it, and then we used to do the class A, like surfacing. Take the package, H points, and all the engineering, the package, ergonomic touch points. We'll freeze exterior first, then we'll go to interiors, and then we do modeling in Alias. 90% of the truck industry work with a software called Alias for styling and design, what you call. So we make virtual nowadays. The virtual reality, artificial intelligence plays, a major role. We do digital prototyping and project it in a screen and see, validate. Every time you have a work in progress review with various stakeholders. One, we call marketing people and the cab engineering. Those guys was going to detail, and nowadays the yearly the concurrent working with the vendors. Yearly introduction to the vendors, or if you freeze the vendors and your suppliers upfront. So therefore, particularly something like headlamp and your grills for the radiator cooling or whatever, all these things can be checked at the right time against the cost. So 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 these are the ones. So you, and once the supplier is on board, you go to so much of iterations on the fine tuning of the surfaces based on your cost. Mounting, of course, design for manufacturing. Design for manufacturing. You should be able to visualize how this is going to assemble at the manufacturing plant.
Amazing.
For example, assume a situation where you make a dashboard which is bigger than the door. How it will go inside, because your VW is like this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so, I'm so I'm actually blown away, and I wanted to put now in the middle of episode, I want to put a disclaimer that I'm not going to neither we both are going to do justice of this documenting this gigantic sort of setup, because it's so many moving parts, so many
Yes.
dependencies, and how impactful the market is. But yeah, we'll try and see if we can just cover the bulk of it,
Right.
as in like the main core of it.
Mm.
Okay, yeah, and then manufacturers, and yeah. Uh, so maybe we want to pick up just like fresh, in a sense, like first time designing a thing, not uplift, but first time. So in that case, also all these things happen, and then uh, do you
The-
want a buy-in from manufacturers also, like other people?
Yeah, yeah,
Or-
yeah, yeah. So, as you rightly said, I'm missing a lot of points. The new cabin is a combination of so many platforms. You have haulage, you have tipper, you have, so many things, right? So, you should have a modular parts, like, the roof is splitted, the door you can use common, the headlamp you can use common, but you have little bit of 2 3 variants, so 7 segment, 5 segments. So the modularity concept is the one which reduces the time and investment for various platforms across ICVs and HCVs. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you have two widths or three widths. So therefore, you'll have the side the same. The frontal panels will go for up and down in the roof, and you have military vehicles. So each platform you can't invest. It's minimum 2,000 crores or something. That's out to out. Until you have a manufacturing plant. So therefore, the completely new things happened only once in my career. Sorry, twice in my career. Once I was very young, when I was working with Tata Motors, they started with the truck of the future. Now it is called Tata Prima. Now all the HCVs are the siblings of the same BAW or same configuration, sharing so many parts of that. And one in Ashok Leyland, which is the new Captain or Avatar truck, which I have encountered full and full in Ashok Leyland. So the full cab, probably in 20 years, I have done only twice. So once in 10 years, basically. But you should be very, very careful of not making any mistake. If you make any mistake in this modeler, or if you have the BAW welding, reachability of robotics, so many things. But it's very interesting. It's not to be very, don't don't think it is very big rocket science. It's all thanks to our seniors. It's all documented properly. So when you are dealing with one section, how to do that. The door sill, your window have to come down. So our ancestors have done so many mistakes and learned and documented. So therefore, the upcoming designer's luck is very easy.
Yeah. Hmm. And the kind of history it has, I think, because I come from a very digital heavy UI UX background, I think we are in that phase of making a lot of mistakes. Hopefully in the next 10, 20, 100 years, we'll have rich documentation of, yeah, dealing with people's lives, like real lives, right?
Exactly.
uh yeah. So
I think. Sorry. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Please, please.
No, so then the prototyping, and then finally the manufacturing. So things are built in real pieces and then they are assembled. And
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about then like stress test and safety test
Yeah, yeah.
and
So
running and other things?
yeah, so once the design is done for the appearances and the manufacturability, then comes the operational prototype. So people go for a soft tooling. Soft tooling, maybe based on your investment, you can make 50 vehicles, 100 vehicles, 200 vehicles, 300 vehicles. You take your time, and we have a continuous testing lab. There will be one cab will be running, one truck will be running without non-stop 10 lakh kilometers continuously on your six posters. Like, there will be a tire will be moving. There are test setups. Okay, so
Correct.
you have a soft tool or the same part to we do 50. I mean, every OEM have their own based on the platform and investment at this point of time. We make soft tooling, Okay, this tool will be capable of some 50 parts, 100 parts. So therefore, the investment is less. So therefore, if any mistake or if any finding for the reiteration, so you can once for all we can fix it before you say okay for the final tooling. Because next 10 years you are going to rely on these tools. So this prototype and testing is very vigorous. As you said, the performance in the form follows the function. The function is it's a functional product. Okay? No one buy truck for its looks. So the operational failures. Even then, if you do a lot of physical and digital testing, one after the other, there will be some field failures, uh, which we can't predict or which we can at this point of time. But still, we are trying to eliminate all the operational failures in the prototyping and testing phase. Will take a lot of time. Particularly, Ashok Leyland goes very robust and very reliable starts. So we get into it.
Got it.
And in this stage, there will be a team of engineers monitor, test, and document each part. Number one for the functional failure. Number two is the wear and tear and things like that. Number three for the crash and regulatory purpose. Number four, value engineering. There will be people who will be adding value by removing certain things, right, to reduce the cost of the vehicle. So in four aspects, people will be working. And the designer, particularly the department which I head, we used to handle from art to part until the launch of the vehicle. No, we will be looking for modification, updation, paint. A lot of interesting. It'll go on. Like for example, I used to say my boss, you should know how the robots, the painting robots, the spray painting robots
Hmm.
moves across your vehicle. You have to design the color accordingly. The pigment, sometimes you have more than critical angles. No, while you are moving, there will be some undercuts.
Hmm.
The robots cannot reach out.
Wow.
For example, fog lamp scoop or headlamp scoops or some, grill going inside. It will be there is programmed, right? So there are certain things. It's 70-degree or something like that, or whatever. But your shapes and scoops and angles and surfaces have to be well conceived by understanding how it is being painted, manufactured, and coming out of the vehicle.
For me, it looks almost like an impossible task right now.
Oh no,
How magnificent this seems.
no, that's the reason why I was skeptical to be so simple, or I don't because it's fun. It's fun. So that's the reason why people like me are there. No, I by looking at the sketch, one can easily say, what is this angle? That angle, don't try because the pigment will not be consistent.
Hmm. 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 Got it. And then finally, hopefully, we have our beautiful truck. And I'm considering here with not just the FES but the entire truck.
Yeah.
And now it's on the road. And then what's the last stage of testing?
Oh,
As in, because I'm asking, when I see generally Hyundai or other cars, they are just wrapped in some paper so that you don't know the model exactly,
yeah.
and they are running.
That
Similar tests happen here.
obviously on roads from here to Hosur. For example, particularly Ashok Leyland have one in Chennai, and you have a big setup in Hosur advantageously. So this road, you can see continuously our trucks are going with mask or without mask or whatever. There is a strain gauge, engineers, drivers, they will be driving continuously.
And these are loaded with 3 tons and 5 tons and things
overload, overloaded
Over-
with dummy bags, concretes, and big concrete slabs have been loaded over there. And we have testing facilities within the R&D. We have lot of terrains, mock-up terrains, water, rain traced, so many things. The continuous there will be a chamber which is raining. So you have to keep your truck for repeated, regulated time to check is there any water leak inside, and there will be rocky terrains. So we appoint a lot of army retired drivers as a test drivers. A lot of army men working as test drivers continuously, 3 shifts on the different terrains of roads. Very hard tests it will go. Suspension, tire, axle, mileage, everything is tested. But it's a big team. I mean,
Correct, correct.
when I say that, I'm not responsible for everything,
Hmm,
right? So there are a lot of brilliant people who will work together.
correct. No, in fact, sir, like what I was thinking is when I'm looking at my questions, how simple or actually shallow they feel because, yeah, like it's
No, no, as I
it's a very broad thing, and I think this deserves a series to understand how lightweight vehicles, heavyweight vehicles are
lightweighting,
designed.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. But yeah, if you want to conclude, like how does it feel when a truck is running on the road which
Yeah.
you have designed or your team has designed? Like what's I
Oh,
mean,
that is, yeah, that comes only to the designer. It's like from art to part, like right from the conception of a sketch and to the launch of a vehicle. It's a wonderful experience. And while you're walking or driving, if you encounter a vehicle you designed
hmm,
coming opposite to you, someone who is driving who you do not know who is he and what is he, and you know, and if he is enjoying, if he is safeguarded by the design, the emotional connect is unexplainable. Only my
hmm,
wife knows. She knows how painful it is because every time vehicle comes in, I'll say, "Hey, look at this vehicle." How many
hmm,
times you say? Every time I say, I will not miss a
hmm,
those or pada those or whatever.
hmm, hmm,
But at the same time, yeah. So I have my recommendations for the listeners of this. Please empathize the poor driver. Normally, India ranked top in the road accidents. Right? 1.35 million per year. That's the accident deaths. But out of that, India tops. We have more than 10%. 1.5 lakh people die every day, every year in this country. Right?
hmm,
And and the driver with a lot of ambiguities. He is long vehicle, yes. He don't know how to turn. Too much of pressure he is undergone. I will throw some information which is available. But recently, there is a survey by a national study conducted by MDRA, which is Marketing and Development Research Associates of India.
hmm.
It says overall, 53% drivers they dissatisfied with this profession. They don't like this.
Hmm.
84% they don't are the drivers across the country. I mean, various cities. I don't want to elaborate much how the samples and things like that. So more than 80% of the people they don't recommend the profession to their sons and daughters or any relatives and friends. They said, even my enemy doesn't. I don't want my enemy to get into this profession. I came accidentally.
Sorry. Hmm,
And 90% of this driver, 93% very precisely, they do not have any provident fund, pension, health insurance, life insurance, gratuity, nothing. Even today in 2022. Okay. And as usual, as I was telling you, only 6% of the owner come driver, which is across the whole thing. It's more in LCV basically. Okay. Many of them are forced to drive 12 hours a day or minimum 400 kilometers a day. To do that, 22% of the drivers accept or confess that they are drinking. 90% of these drivers who is driving in all across India are not trained properly, undergo any driving test by a proper, you know. So they come as a cleaner, dropouts come as a cleaner, they they perceive and then do on their own and then get into licenses. Okay. And I'll tell you the last thing. This drivers are the most vulnerable or victimized by bribes and cops. Every year, 42,000 crores is the bribe by only trucks alone in the country, India. 42 to 43,000 crores. Okay. Now, my recommendation is in India, we have traffic immorality. I don't know why, but many of us are restless and very, irritated while driving the car. I don't know. So we give gullies, or if we want to try to overtake the drivers, he is running a machine with so much of responsibilities. The goods, the product that you use every day, right from cell phones, computers, TVs, and everything has been transported from A to B by these poor drivers. Please empathize, and if you don't give gullies, at least if you don't help, at least don't irritate them. That is my recommendation.
So you touched a very beautiful chord there, because yeah, even I've observed and blamed a lot of times the truck drivers, but this kind of perspective really changes and hopefully drives empathy. But yeah, I think just given the interest of time, we can conclude this
Yes.
episode. But so definitely we should do a series on this, where we deep dive into how these are designed technically, much more in nuance, for LCVs and like SUVs and other things. It would be fascinating for me, for personally, to learn. And I will ask users, as in like listeners, also to please let us know that if this was helpful. On
I
that
think
note,
I know many things. I am as dumb as anybody else outside this design. So we learn from each other. Thank you.
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for giving your time. It was wonderful talking to you.
Thanks for the opportunity. I think I can move somebody's perception, even 1% here. That is the success of this spending time with you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks. Okay, that's it. And that's it from today's Gyan session. For show notes and more Gyan, visit audiogyan.com. And if you wish to connect with me, I am at Audiogyan Moments on Instagram. Until then, take care.